the warm-up. For number 1, what did we get for a solution? Yeah. X equals 1. How many of you did get that? Okay. You have to divide by 3 first to isolate your cube root, equals 1. And to undo cube root, we cube both sides. Okay? So our solution is x equals 1. When it says check for extraneous, you're taking your solution and substituting it back in. So we have 3 times the cube root of 1 equals 3. The cube root of 1 is 1. 3 equals 3, so x equals 1 is our solution. Okay, number 2, what do we get for an answer? Yep, 5. Good. We square both sides. So we have x minus 1 equals 4. And we add 1 to both sides. And we get x equals 5. Okay. We check. 5 minus 1 equals 2. Okay. And when we're checking and evaluating on one side, we only use the positive value. Okay. Only the positive value. How many of you got 1 and 2 correct? Good. All right. Number 3. What did we get? Liam? 5 and 2. How many of you did get that? All right. We square both sides. So when we square, a square root cancels out. So we have 5x minus 9. Then on the right-hand side, we have x minus 1 squared. Well, we have 2 of those. Okay, I shouldn't see x squared plus 1 on your paper because there's middle terms there. So we have 5x minus 9. If I was to FOIL, okay, then combine like terms. Okay, since I have an x squared term, I have to move everything over and set it equal to 0. So I'm subtracting 5x and adding 9. Okay. X minus 5, x minus 2. Set those both equal to 0. 5 and 2. And here, especially, we should check our solutions. Okay. When we plug those in, if we start with 5, equals 5 minus 1. So 5 times 5 is what? 25 minus 9? 16. What's the square root of 16? So 5 does work. And we're going to do the same thing with 2. Okay, 5 times 2 minus 9. Square root of 1. Good. So Liam was right. Both do work. Yeah. So you could do either or, right? You're doing the work anyway, right? So these are your 2 possible solutions. If you were to, let's say 2 wasn't an answer, cross it out and write EXT or just circle that one, you're correct as well. Okay? You're doing all the work anyway. Okay? You're doing all the work anyway, so you will have these 2 possible solutions. So just cross it out. Okay? Number 4, what did we get for an answer? Nick? 2, good. Since there's square roots on either side, okay, square both sides. 5x plus 3 equals 3x plus 7. From here, we're just able to solve. Get your x's on one side and your numbers on another. And x equals 2. And when you plug it back in, you should get square root of 13 on either side, which does work. Okay? Any questions on the warm-up? Okay. Any questions on the homework? Yeah, me. Yep. Mhm. So you. Okay. So for number 8, since you have a subtraction sign in between, right? The best idea here, you don't want to square both sides because that's just a mess waiting to happen. You could do it, but it's just a mess. So what you could do is just add 5x plus 2 to both sides, the square root of 5x plus 2, to set them equal to each other. Then from here, you just square it. Okay? Yeah, Lucy. Number 1? Sure. Okay. So number 1, what do you have to do to both sides? Square it. Okay, so you're squaring this whole thing. So you have 2x plus 1. Negative 5 squared is what? 25. Then you subtract 1. X equals 12, right? Okay, so when I plug this back in to check, 2 times 12 plus 1 to the 1/2 is negative 5. 24 plus 1, and remember, 1/2 is what? The square root. Square root of 25 is 5 equal negative 5. Okay, so that's, I think, where the confusion comes in. Okay, when we're checking, you're only looking at the positive root. Okay, only looking at the positive root. Any other questions on the homework? Okay, and most importantly, when it says check for extraneous solutions, you want to plug them back into the original equation. Okay, so we're going to do some practice on this. If you look at page 6, okay, and we're going to go back to a part of our notes that we haven't seen yet. On here. Okay, page 6, there's something called the circuit. Okay, something called the circuit. So you start in this first box. Okay, solve it out. Okay, once you find the answer, okay, so go ahead, do number 1 first. Do number 1, and let's see what your answer is. For number 1, what did we get? Yeah. 5. So find the answer where it says 5 and label that blank 2. Okay, so you're going to go through it. So Liam brings up a good point. You do want to check your answers to make sure they work. Okay, one thing is, when we're taking a rational exponent and the denominator is 2, you're supposed to have plus or minus, but there's only one scenario here. They're only going to take the positive side of things. Okay, so go through this. All right, as you go through, that's what it does. So start with where it says answer 5. 2 times x plus 3 to the 3/2. Solve that. The answer will now be number 3. Okay? For the blank. You should get back to your first box when you're done. Okay? A lot of confusion. Okay? A lot of confusion on the circuit. Okay? A lot of confusion on the circuit in terms of what to do. You have to think of PEMDAS. Okay? You have to think of PEMDAS for a lot of these. All right? In terms of the circuit, when we had x minus 9 equals 3, just an example, you want to always isolate your radical first, no matter what. Okay? Even if there's more stuff underneath it, you want to isolate that radical. So you add 9 equals 12. Divide by 3. Then you square it. So you get x equals 16. Okay? That was on the bottom left, the third one down. Then for the one next to it, okay, again, you want to isolate your parentheses to that exponent. Okay? So you divide by 2 first. X plus 3 to the 3/2 equals 64. Okay? When you have a rational exponent, you then raise it to the reciprocal. So from here, raise it to the 2/3. So you have x plus 3 equals the cube root of 64 squared. So you have x plus 3 equals 4 squared, 16, x equals 13. Okay? I can't tell you how many times people came up regarding this. Well, it's attached to your notes, guys. Attached to your notes. Look back, okay? Instead of just stopping and staring at the wall. Look back to see if you could work through your steps. Okay? So many people came up and I have no idea. Well, look, there's 3 problems we did, if not more, on your notes. Okay? Then if you look at on the next page, this is the same thing. You want to isolate your parentheses. Divide by 2, x minus 2 to the 2/3 equals 25. Then again, you raise it to the reciprocal. X minus 2 equals the square root of 25 cubed. 5 cubed, 125. Okay, so there is just a few things that came up. Okay, just by looking. Okay, yeah. So we have okay. So here again, same thing. We're raising it to the reciprocal, which is 2x plus 5 equals the square root of 16 cubed. 2x plus 5 equals 4 cubed equals 64. 59. 59 over 2. Okay. And then the one where it says top right. Okay. Top right was the square root of 2x minus 1 plus 7 equals 4. Again, we want to isolate that. Okay. So you subtract 7, negative 3, then you square it. The 1 is underneath the radical, so you can't separate it. Okay? Square both sides. 9, 2x equals 10, x equals 5. This is where you had to check to plug it back in. It did not work. Okay? Just to go through a few that definitely came up over and over and over again. Okay? A little bit of everything. And this was the last one we'll go through. Okay? You're raising everything. You're squaring it. So that's 4x plus 8 equals 2x squared, which is 4x squared. You still have that 4x squared there, or an x squared term, everything is divisible by 4, and then you factor. Okay, see what solution works and what doesn't. Okay, so again, just a lot of things that came up in terms of solving, not knowing where to start or not knowing what I should do. Look back at your notes. That's what the notes are there for. Everything's attached for that reason. Okay, some of you worked through it and got stumped on like 1 or 2, but there was a lot of people that had no idea what step to do. And I'm glad we did this and asked you to come up to see where we stood. Okay, and again, if you miss class for whatever reason, where do we always look? Google Classroom, and those of you that were out, a decent amount of you printed out the notes, so thank you for that, even though I had the packet for you, but still, thank you. And watch the video. I record everything for that reason. Not everybody does in your classes, right? So you could always go back to it. Because I know sometimes we're going on a faster pace or slower pace, depending, and you might have missed something along the way, right? Even though my notes are posted, you may not understand unless you hear it. Okay, so it is posted for you. I do that for every class, especially if we're learning something new. It's a new lesson. Typically reviews, unless I'm up here a lot, I will record it. Other than that, most, if not all, lessons are recorded, okay, for you to go back to. All right? So, solving is definitely part of your quiz on Monday, okay? This maze, and some of you did not get this yet, but this maze is rewriting and then seeing if you could simplify. So, a few things pretty much on the back is where I saw some problems, okay? Just a few things to go through. If you see this, how would you rewrite it? Yeah. Cube root of 27x. Now, can you simplify anything in here? See a lot of head shaking. Nick? Good. So the cube root of 27 is what? Can I do anything with the cube root of x? No. So this is your final answer. Okay? So on the back of the maze, it wants you to simplify. Okay? There is a difference, though, between, let's say, what's the difference between the two of those? Mia? Perfect. So this is another big difference. Parentheses, the whole thing is included underneath the square root. Here, where there's no parentheses, only the x is affected by the square root. Okay? So this is good practice to go through, rewriting, and then simplifying. So if I had how would I rewrite that? Nick? Good. Okay, square root of x to the 5th. Now, can that be simplified? Those? Correct. Another way you could say, okay, since it's the square root, 2 goes into 5 how many times? Twice. There's 1 left over. Okay? So you want to simplify those guys. There is another one, just so you see what you're getting into. You have 2 on the outside. Then how do I rewrite 8x to the 1/2? What does that mean? Yeah, Tyler. Yep. Times square root of 8x. Okay. Now the 2's already on the outside. Can I simplify the square root of 8x? To what? Yep. So the square root of 4 is 2. I can't do anything with this left over. So that stays inside. Okay? Excuse me. You're going to see some like these. Okay? Which make you think a little bit. All right? So as you go through these mazes, help each other out. Okay? Definitely help each other out because it could be a little confusing. Right? So your homework, okay? You have the mazes. If you did not get one, when I'm done, come up and grab it. Okay? So, one, oops, can't spell. One, the mazes, it's front and back. Okay? Then, page 8. Through 10, I'm going to give you the specific numbers. Okay? Oops. 1 through 5. Then for number 6, and this is on page, starting on page 9. Number 6, B, D, G, H. Okay? To start your review. Okay? There's 2 separate reviews that I have. Mazes are the ones that you're working on now. Then in the packet that you got, pages 8 through 10. Page 8 starts review 1. 1 through 5. 1 through 4 is on page 8. And on page 9 is 5. Use 4 for 6. And then the 2 is on page 10. Okay? So you have plenty of time. Work together with the mazes. If you did not get a maze, please come up and grab one. And then go through the review.